Hello guys, welcome back to part 3 of the Simon Says game. And the last video we created this audio class and the UI element class, and we created another variable in here which is a list that holds all the audio objects, and we created the event that will see if we're actually clicking on a button, on which button we're clicking, and we're just setting the button color to this variable clicked button, which is the last button that we clicked. So let's work on the update function now, which is gonna be all the brain of the game, basically the logic of the game. It's not very big, this update function, but there is a few things in there to bear in mind, and we're gonna have to create some other functions as well for the animations. Okay, so let's just go through this update function. The first thing we're going to do here is we're gonna check if we are not waiting. So if not self dot waiting for input. So if it's false, if we're not waiting for the inputs, that means the computer has to give us the pattern. Okay, so that's what we're gonna be writing now. So we check that, and if that's true, then we're just going to give it a break in here. So pygame.time.wait, and you can pass in here milliseconds. So that is just gonna pause the game for 1 second. In this case, I put 1,000. So it's just gonna give you a little break, so you can actually see which one the computer is pressing, or which of the buttons it's giving it to you. Otherwise, if you don't put this, it's just gonna be very fast and it's gonna be a bit difficult to play. And after we wait 1 second, we're going to append to the pattern list. We're going to append a random dot choice, and we're going to choose the list, the self dot colors. So whoops, self dot colors. So we pass that list inside here. So we're going to pick a random color from this list, and we're going to append to this pattern list that we created in here. Okay, so every time that is not waiting for the inputs, we're going to append a new color to that list. Okay, and then for button in self dot pattern, we're going to call this function that we're going to create later, which is going to be the button animation. Okay, and we pass the button inside. That's going to be just a color, just to know which button we're pressing. And this function animation is going to handle that fades flash color. Okay, so we're going to create that later. So we do that for each of the colors in the pattern. So every time it goes through this, it's gonna add one color, and then it's gonna wait for you to press, and then it's gonna add another color, and then it's gonna flash each of the colors in this list. Okay, and just after that as well, we're going to just give it another wait time in here, so another delay. That's just gonna be a bit shorter, so 200 milliseconds. And after all of this, we do waiting for input. We set it to true. So after we show the user all the button animation, then we just wait for the input. Okay, so and then we have a else statement in here. So if not self.waiting, then else, that means now it's the player's, the user's turn to play. So we need to press the buttons, right? So the first thing in here is gonna check if we pushed the correct button. And we're gonna do this by checking if self.click button and self.click button equals to self.pattern self.current step. Okay, let me just close this. So first we see if self.click button, so that means it's not none. Okay, and then we also see if the clicked button is equals to the self.pattern current step. That means we're clicking on the right button. Okay, that self.current step, as I mentioned before, is going to increase by each of the colors that we have in the self.pattern. Okay, and so if that's true, that means we push the correct button, and then we do self.button animation and self.click button. So we pass the color inside, so we do that animation for when we press each of the buttons as well. And then we do current step plus equals 1. So we increase that step. And inside of this as well, so if we're pressing the correct button, and also we have to check if we pushed or if we pressed the last button in that list. Okay, so if self.current step is equals to the length of self.pattern, that means we press the last button on that list. Okay, then we do self.score plus equals 1, then we gain 1 score. And then we do self.waiting for inputs. We go back to false because now it's the computer's turn to show us the new pattern. And the self.current step goes back to 0. Okay, so that is done if we press the correct button. Now we have to check if we're pressing the wrong button. So we need to do an else statement here. You can't just put an else. Okay, so it needs to be an else because we need to check if the click button is not none and the self.click button is not equals to the self.pattern self.current is step. Okay, so you have to put an else in here. If you put an else statement, it's not going to work. Then that means we press the wrong button. Let me just put this comment in here. So pushed the wrong button. And here we're going to show a game over animation, which we're gonna create that later as well. Animation. And we're going to save the score as well. This function we're going to create later when we do the high score. So this is gonna save to the high score. And we're also gonna do self.playing equals false. Okay, so if we make a mistake, then the self.playing is false. Then this run function is gonna end and it's gonna go back into the new function. It's going to reset all the variables and then it's going to start again. Okay, so that is everything. Believe it or not, that is everything for the update section. So basically we're just checking if it's our turn to play or if it's the computer, and then the computer show us the pattern, and then it's wait for us to press the buttons. If we press the correct button, and if we press the last button, then we just keep going on the game. But if we press the wrong button, then we just end the game and start again. Okay, if I run this, nothing's happening. Yeah, I clicked in there, I just said button animation, but that doesn't exist. Okay, so let's create those two functions for the button animation and for the game over animation, because right now we can't really see what we're doing. So let's just quickly create those animation. That is a little bit of a long code as well. I'm just gonna try to go through it and try to explain as much as I can. Okay, so outside of here we're going to create two functions. So the first one is going to be button animation, and inside here it's going to take a color. Okay, and the other one is going to be the game over animation, and it doesn't need anything in there. They're going to be pretty similar. I think I'm probably going to copy and paste some of it after. Some of the button animation I'm going to probably copy and paste to the game over animation. Okay, so for the button animation, we're going to do a for loop in here. So for I in range of the length of self.color, so we're gonna go in range of the length of the colors here, which is 4 in this case. And if self.colors I is equals to the color, so now we're gonna go to all the colors, we're gonna check if one of those colors is equals to the color that we want to animate. Then we're going to create a variable called sounds, and it's gonna be self.beeps I. That's why it was important to put this in order. So yellow, dark yellow, blue, dark blue. That's because we're gonna use it now. So create a variable called sounds self.beeps I. Okay, and also flash color is equals to flash colors I, and the button is self.buttons. If you guess right, it's I. So we are using the same index for all of these lists. That's why it's important to put them all in the same order in here. Okay. Also in order with the buttons. Okay. The color of the buttons. Okay, so after we create all of this, so we check for the list. If one of the colors the same color as the one that we want to animate, we create all of these variables, and now we're gonna do the animation. We're going to create a variable here called original surface. So we're gonna make a copy of the surface. So we're gonna call self.screen.copy, or original screen as well, you can call it. Okay, so we're just gonna make a copy of it so we don't mess up the original one basically. And then we're gonna create a flash surface, which is a pygame.surface, and it's gonna be button size by button size. So we're just creating another surface in here for the flashy. And also flash.surface is equals to flash.surface dot we're just going to convert this to alpha because we're going to use the, so when you create the colors in here you give it RGB, but you can also give it another parameter in here, which is the alpha. I think it's from 0 to 100, and 0 means totally transparent, and 100 means not transparent. So you can do that transparency basically. So that's what we're gonna be using for the animation, okay? And then we're also gonna have a RGB variables in here, which we're gonna take from the flash color, okay? So the flash color is going to be a tuple. We're just going to transfer this to RGB separate variables. And also we're going to do sound dot play, so we can play that specific sound. And now is the bit more difficult part, which we're going to have to loop through it to do the animation, the flashy animation. So we're going to do a for loop in here. So for start, end, and step in, and then we're gonna have two tuples inside here, 0, 255, 1, and then 255, 0, and -1. Okay, so that starts, end, and a step that we want to go. This one is gonna go backwards, this one is gonna go forwards from 0 to 255. Yeah, the alpha is actually from 0 to 255, not 0 to 100, sorry. So 0 being very transparent, 255 being not transparent at all. And then we're gonna do another for loop inside of this. We're gonna go for alpha in a range of starts, ends, and then the step is gonna be the animation speed that we set in the beginning times the step. So this animation speed here, if you put a lower number than this, it's gonna be a bit faster. If you put a higher number, it's gonna be a bit slower, the animation. Okay, so inside of this for loop, we're going to have a self.screen.animate blit, and we're gonna blit the original surface and at 0, 0. And we're gonna take the flash surface, flash underscore surface, and we're gonna fill it with the RGB and the alpha. That's why I had to convert this back into RGB, because otherwise if I put just a tuple in here, I cannot place this alpha inside of that tuple. So that's why we had to convert it to RGB. Okay, and that has to be in a tuple actually. So just gonna add those parentheses in here. And after this, we're gonna do self.screen.blitz flash.surface, and then we're gonna use the button X and button Y. So we're just gonna paste it on top of the button that we're clicking on, or the animation is going on. Okay, and then we just do pygame.display.update, so we can update the screen, and we do self.clock.tick FPS in here as well. And outside of those two for loops, we do self.screen.blitz original surface 0 and 0. So after we do all of this animation, then we just paste the original surface back. Okay, so that is all for the button animation. I hope this makes sense. You guys can try to figure out how this is working, but it's basically going on alpha from 0 to 255. We're just increasing and then decreasing that alpha from each of the colors, from the color, from the button color, and then it makes that flashy animation. Okay, so basically we have the lighter color on top, we have the lighter yellow. Whoops, oh, it's working already actually. So if I do this, you see, so we have that lighter color on top of the blue, for example, and then the transparency just makes it brighter and fades away. If I click on it, what's gonna happen? And it's all working actually already. So we can play it. There's no score, there's no high score. And I assume if I do a game over, then it just gives me an error because we still don't have that game over animation. So let's just create that, and that's gonna be the last thing we do, I think. Oh, and the high score, but that's easy. So for the game over animation, it's gonna be kind of similar to this. So we're going to copy, but we don't need to do this part because we don't have the button. So we're just gonna flash 3 times a white screen, and then we're just gonna do a game over. So that's gonna be the animation. It's gonna flash 3 times the white into the screen, and it's gonna play all the sounds at the same time. So we're going to copy the original surface up to this part here. So original surface, flash surface, and flash surface convert alpha. We will copy in here, but in here on the flash surface, we have to change this because we're not doing the animation in a button. We're gonna do in the whole screen. So this is gonna be just a self.screen.get size. So it's just gonna get the size of the screen in there. Let me just close this, and then we just convert to alpha as usual. And then in here we're going to do a for beep and self.beeps. So we're just gonna play all the beeps at the same time. Okay, so beep.play. And we're going to do the same thing in here. So RGB is going to be equals to white. So we're just going to transfer the white variable, which is this one, 255, 255, 255. Just going to transfer that to the variables RGB. Same thing in here, because we're going to have to add the alpha to do that animation at the end. So we can copy all of this for loop up to the clock.tick. So just copy that, paste it in here. So we paste in that. So we have the start and step. That's the same thing. The alpha as well. We're gonna loop through it. The animation speed. We're going to put the original surface and then flash.surface.fill. We're gonna fill it with the RGB and the alpha. The only thing we're gonna have to change in here is instead of having button X and button Y, we're just gonna put 0 and 0. So that's where we're going to draw it on the 0 and 0 coordinates. And then we update the screen, we do self.tick. Now just to test this, I'm going to come back in here. I'm just gonna comment the self.save score so we don't get an error in there. And let's just see if it is working. So it gave me red, I press red, red, red. Let's make a mistake now. Okay, so it only flashed once, but I wanted to flash 3 times. That's why, okay, so all of this, we have to indent this. So if you select all of this and you press tab, it will just indent it. We're gonna put all of that inside of a for loop in range of 3 because I wanted to flash 3 times. Okay, so we just do this 3 times. Let's try again. Okay, let's make a mistake. You see, flashes 3 times and then it just starts again. Okay, so the game is actually ready, but just to make it a bit nicer, let's do the high scores and also display the score into the screen. So I'm going to uncomment this save score and we're gonna go back up right just after the constructor before the new function. We're just going to define 2 functions in here, which is gonna be to get the high score and the other one is gonna be to save the score. Okay, so get the high score we're going to do with open and we're gonna call this file high score.txt and we're gonna open as read in read mode as the name file. Okay, so we're gonna do score is equals to file.read and we're just going to return an integer of that score because this is going to come back as a string, so we just transform it into an integer. Okay, and to save this score it's almost the same thing. So with open high score, what is this? Open high score dot text. Now we're going to open in write mode because we're going to write to it and as a file as well. And now we just have an if statement in here to see if the score that we are doing right now is more than the high score. So if it is more than the high score, then we update. If it's not, then we just keep the same high score as it was before and we don't update anything. So if self.score is greater than self.high score, we don't have that variable yet actually. We're gonna have to create that. So if the score is more than self.high score, then we do file.write, and now we have to write as a string. Okay, self.score, and else we just do file.write string self.high score. High score. Okay, so if the current score is more than the high score that we have, then we write that score into the file. And if not, then we just write the high score. It's just going to keep the same basically. Let's create this high score variable, which will go just after the self.score in here. So every time we create a new game, we just update that. So self.score it's going to be equals to self.getHighScore. So that one is going to get from the file. So we're just going to update every time. So in case we update the high score, then we're just going to get the new high score and updates to the game as well. Okay, so just the last thing to do now is to just display those scores into the screen. So let's go into the draw function here. Just before the buttons, we're going to create two UI elements in here. Okay, so the first one is going to be at 170 for the X, at 20 for the Y, and we're going to do f string in here. We're going to write score, and inside here is going to be a string of the self.score, and we're going to call the draw function in the screen. Okay, and the second element is going to be a UI element at 370, oops, 370, at 20 on the Y, and again we're going to do a f string for the high score. There we go. And this is going to be a string of self.highScore, and we just draw this into the screen. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so I have to create this file. I forgot. Let me just go into my file in here, just create a file called high score.txt and just put a high score in there. Just put a 0 just to begin with. And let's try again. Okay, so now there's a score in here and there's this high score. Let's play a little bit and see what happens. Don't know if it's very loud for you guys or not. Okay, okay, 3. Let's make a mistake. Okay, there we go, updated. Now let's try to beat our score. Okay, I'm not gonna beat this score. So if I make a mistake, it's 2, it does not update. Now let's try to beat that score. Okay, we got 3. Jesus, he really likes the blue and the red, no? So he's gonna go to another color. Okay, now I will make a mistake. Okay, any updates, the high score 4 and the game starts again. He really likes the blue, right? Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll leave the link for the full codes in the description, and let me know if you have any questions about the codes. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any suggestions as well for future game or for future code, for future content basically. I want to do some other stuff as well, just not only games. But yeah, I just haven't been had too much time at the moment. But yeah, just leave me some suggestions if you want to see some specific code. I can try to create something and try to make a tutorial out of it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.